Teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic, teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic, teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic, teacher of logic, Dr. Deacon, Ananias. Teacher of logic. Another good lecture, another good lecture, another good lecture, another good lecture. Another good lecture, 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 another good lecture.
The bell is rung, and class is now in session. Broadcasting coast to coast from beautiful Montana. Put your chin in your hand and think along with your resident professor of philosophy, Father Dr. Deacon Ananias Sorum.
Hello, everybody. Blessed feast for those of you on the old calendar. Let's see who we got in. I was a little bit late on kind of announcing this, so we only have 5 viewers. Well, we can hang out for a little bit. Let's let some people pile in. I pray all of you are well. And yeah, I just wanted to give some announcements today. Also get some feedback from all of you. I know we did this last time. I'm going to announce some of the stuff with the philosophy courses, and then also upcoming events sponsored through Patristic Faith. But let's just see real quick. I wonder if we should sing a song. O Lord, save thy people, and bless thine inheritance. Grant victory unto Orthodox Christians over their adversaries, and by the virtue of thy cross, preserve thy habitation. That is for today the Troparion for the elevation, exaltation of the life-giving precious cross. And so, yeah, blessed feast. I pray all of you are well. If you want, we have donations and super chats. That's provided in the comment section right there. Okay, so I just wanted to, get some of your feedback on, I announced last time that I put together these university courses. And unlike the other courses that I've sold before, and I'll continue to sell that, and we'll advertise that and get that up on Patristic Faith soon. Previously, what I had done is basically package 16 weeks of pre-recorded lectures that are set to private, and then for purchase, you can purchase those. And you can see here, if I go, if I share a screen, for example, you have, this is the logic course. This is just individual lectures. You get PowerPoint slides, the free PDF book for at least for the logic class. Some of the other classes you have to purchase the books, which is pretty cheap anyways to get them online. But the price plan that's typical, this one's a logic course, but I have it for Intro to Philosophy, Epistemology, Philosophy of Science, Ethics, and then Political Philosophy. Some people just want to have, and they're about approximately an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes. And each lecture is $25, and you can see the different pricing plans here. Where if you bundle it, bundles are where you have 2 lectures. you get $5 off. And you can collect bundles, basically. Purchase various bundles. Bundles of bundles. You could go up to a third of the course, and that's $150, and one free lecture is basically your savings. That's $25 savings, or full course. It depends. Some courses have 23, 24, but typically around, I think the Logic has 22, and for $425, and that's obviously the best deal at $125. But if you remember from last stream, what I did is I basically came here and I built, where am I built actually university courses. So rather than just getting the lectures, now you can do that, you can purchase, but for $850, you can actually have the full access to this University Canvas website here with calendar, inbox, discussions, quizzes. You get basically, materials and quizzes and exams graded. You have files with various things that you can see here, all the PowerPoints and various other materials that are added through there. You have the syllabus, what else? Let's go to the home page. You have announcements. So it's a university college basically course. If you were doing something online, either a hybrid or asynchronistic course, this is exactly what you'd get. And then all the pre-recorded lectures right there. This is for the Logic. With that, you get free office hours as well. So once a week, anywhere from an hour, hour and a half, that would actually be live with the professor, myself, in which you can, Zoom or something like that, where you zoom in and we discuss or go over various lectures, Q&A or anything like that. And so that package, like I said, is $850, and from a university professor, myself, who's taught this at accredited colleges, and so these syllabi are already approved. They're at that level. The quality is at that level, and so it's a very, very good price. And even for people offering master's classes, typically around $1,100, $1,200, $1,500 for what I'm offering. What I have decided to do is also create a payment plan in case certain people will perhaps not have the finances right away at $850. So let's see. I could actually do a payment plan over a course of a year, and that would be, let's see, what you'd be paying a month. $70 a month would be the payment plan. So for the price of a cup of coffee a day, $2.30, you could have a full university course provided to you. I'm planning on launching it in like a week or two. That's why I'm, discussing this. I need to get a little bit more feedback from you. I'm setting up what I would probably do for the payment plan is what's a subscription, in which you are charged monthly. If you wanted to do that through somewhere like PayPal. Caleb asks, will Canvas materials, slides, videos be available open after the course has officially closed? Yeah, so here's the thing that I was thinking about since I last spoke to you. I'm going to put this into a 16-week basically course. And you have two options. You can either follow me and the rest of the students on the 16 weeks. So you're just going to have, if I go back here, and let's do assignments. I'm going to share screen so you can see this. I'll have all of this released. I'm going to redo the dates and stuff. It just set kind of in a default right there. I'm going to have each of these set. So each one of these is a week, right? The week assignment. And you'll see the exams too. I also have for those, you get a lot more if you're doing it week by week in the 16 week. But I actually have check-ins, they're just small assignments for me to check in on how you're doing, for you to have conversations with other students. So for example, looking over the last readings in chapter 1.1, 1.2, please answer the following questions for our discussion thread. So if we have 10, 12 students in there, all of you will be able to participate by basically leaving your reply. What is something from the readings that you found interesting, or something that you learned that you might have not known before? And two, what is something that you found confusing or didn't understand? And then there's a discussion where you're logging in and you're basically responding, and you get a graded point on that. And that's a midweek assignment. And then basically what you can do, this will all be open to you rather than hidden and then released each week. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm going to give the option for those who want to go at their own speed. So this course will be open. If you purchase this, you'll have all of this stuff forever and ever unto the ages of ages. And then that allows this is open. You either go week by week, which I recommend that you do. You'll get more out of it. Or you can have the option of going at your own speed. So basically, these are assignments that you would need to complete. So you won't get marked off if you're not doing it each by week, but it's structured to be a weekly assignments and weekly check-in assignments. Does that make sense? Does that kind of either go at your own speed or go week by week? Complete those. Once it's completed, I'll give you a certificate. I'll give you a grade from, we had 3 exams. I might add a 4th in there, but usually 3 are good. Oh, that's right. 3 exams and a final exam. So there's 4 exams. And if we come back here, you can see a breakdown of the grades. So once you complete all the assignments and the grades, then according to the assessment breakdown, you'll be graded and you'll be given a grade, and I'll write up a certificate for you of completion in case also if I'll be working on in the future trying to get this to possibly be accredited or be transferable units. That certificate that I'll send to you signed by me can then serve in the future if we're able to actually accomplish that, is that 3-unit credit. This course is also offered at the university and fulfills all the standards of accreditation at various universities, and therefore should be a transferable class if you wanted to. Okay, so so here's my thoughts, is that either I'm going to do and I want to get your feedback as far as an interest of doing, I'm only going to start off with one just to see how everybody likes it. and then work to release the others. So right now what we have up is, come back here, dashboard. Introduction to Philosophy or Logic and Critical Thinking. They're both structured very similarly. This is obviously logic and critical thinking is much more difficult. This you do have to purchase a book for some of the readings or rent it. This one will be provided in a PDF, although now I think about it, you might have to purchase that because the PDF's an old version, and the problem sets that I assign and in the videos I go over the homework exercises. So actually you may just want to invest in purchasing, this is obviously my instructor copy, the 13th edition, I forgot about that. I'll give you the free PDF, but it's not going to match. If you come here, there are problem sets that I assign for homework, and one thing I realized a couple years ago teaching this is they don't match the PDF. So if you want to save money, it's fine, but like you're not going to basically be able to be getting doing the right problems. They're similar problems, but you wouldn't be getting the solutions to those problems. Okay, so what I need to know is I'm going to start off with one of these, either the Introduction to Philosophy or the Logic and Critical Thinking, and therefore I want to know people's interest. You're more interested in taking the Introduction to Philosophy, that's both a historical kind of overview of philosophy and thematic as well. Oh, sorry, I didn't see I wasn't screening. This is the book I use now. This is obviously the 13th edition. This is an instructor's manual, but basically I was showing there are problem sets that I assigned for the logic. Those aren't going to match the online PDF version because the online is like an 8th or 9th edition. They're similar problems. The disadvantage of just not purchasing the book, the 13th edition, would simply be in the videos I actually go over the problems, the homework problems. So you wouldn't actually be getting the solutions to that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to make a poll right now and just see what you'd be more interested in. Let's start a poll. How do I do this? Or a Q&A. Oh, I know how I word it. Would you prefer the logic course over the introduction to philosophy course? Let's see. Let's see what you guys have to say on that. I mean, the logic's pretty awesome. It's difficult though, like people, but it's very beneficial. I see 7% say no. Let's see. So it looks like people are wanting the where would you access this? Upon payment, you receive basically confirmation, and I get an email, and then via your email, I'm capable of adding you into the Canvas course. Just you'd be a student. And then once you're added, you have permanent access to log in to the Philosophy Canvas course or the Logic, access files, take quizzes, do the assignments. And then, like I said, maybe it would probably be Thursday evenings. We'll do hour and a half office hours. Wow, the Logic overtook the Introduction to Philosophy. By the way, how's the audio? I was working on fixing it today, and I think I got it. It sounds better, except the air conditioner went on, and I was... One second. Sounds like it's raining when the air conditioner comes on. But tonight, we will be doing music classes. What are we at? 8 votes? Yeah, I switched it. It's going to take a second for the the air to... Here's a cool song. This one's really hard. It's Kentucky Mandolin by Bill Monroe. So it goes to... I want to have it released in a week or two and available. So that's what I'm trying to get feedback from all of you. Looks like we have 11 votes and 11 votes, 12 votes so far, with 67% saying Logic and 33 saying Introduction to Philosophy. Um, 12 votes still. Why is it adjusting? Can you? Oh, 13 votes. Got it. Well, this happens when you join midstream. Oh, the questions about... Yeah, crazy Streamlabs. It's like you get everything set up and and it works fine. Audio, video, and then something can happen in the OBS and it gets all messed up. Either sound great. I mean, so you can purchase the individual lectures. You will not get quizzes. You will not get exams. You will not have homework assignments. You will not have office hours with me, live office hours. You will not have discussion threads with fellow students. If you just wanted to purchase the recorded lectures, you can do that. It's a discount. You just don't get as much out of that. But maybe you'd like to actually purchase a few just to see if do I like what I'm getting in before I sign up. That's fine. And I give a price plan for that. It's $25 a lecture. If you bundle it to two, you get $45. A third of the course is a third of the 22 lectures would be $150, and $450 for all 22, 24 lectures, depending on what course is available. Some have 22, some have 24. But the Canvas course, that's a full-blown university course where we're doing all, like, I'm providing live office hours for you, Q&A, discussions, and then you have access to all the materials that I just showed you on Canvas. That's $850. And for those that you can't up front, I can actually negotiate a payment plan where you pay a monthly fee that's like when you do a subscription, it's just directly debited from you, and there'll be a legal contract to make sure that people will just come in and download everything and then leave, and without facing the full extent of the law. Yeah, AC, I forgot about that. AC is a wonderful contributor, Patristic Faith, and I actually gifted him the entire course. So that's a great. He already has all the lectures. You can actually ask AC if he's been liking going through the pre-recorded logic lectures, but hasn't had access to the Canvas. In your case, if you wanted to join our crew, yeah, just pay the difference. That's totally fine. That would work. So we have 15 votes. 60% say yes, the logic course. And then again, for those of you that you can always sign up later for the introduction to philosophy, unless I have enough. What do you think? Yes, I need reading glasses. I'm blind. You can see I squint all the time. I've needed glasses for a long time. I don't need nothing. Just need my mandolin, my Bible, my theology books, and my logic, and that's all. And my cell phone, my microphone. And that's all I need. Other announcement. I'll play this later tonight in practice. This Friday, I am going to be recording our catechesis continuing education on Father Pomazansky's book here, Orthodox Dogmatic Theology. And so I will be uploading that hopefully Saturday night as a premiere. I basically booked a room at my college. It's the best room at the college. I love it. And I would love to do live, but I don't have any streaming school computers don't allow you to download like streaming software or anything like that. And so Yeah, somebody says I need glasses. I need glasses. Now I got these glasses, but they're like blue blockers and they don't do anything. I do have some reading glasses somewhere. I don't even know why it's not like squinting makes your eyesight better. All it does is it gives me what is it, crow's feet, the wrinkles on the side of your face. But for some reason, not seeing makes you want to squint, but squinting doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't make it like you can see stuff better. So, don't know why I do it. Anyways, yeah, I would love to stream live the Orthodox Catechesis and Continuing Education class. It serves a dual purpose for those that are inquirers and catechumens at our parish. They've been coming and being catechized, and then other parishioners who've been long-time parishioners, they're also attending, but they're not catechumens, and they attend because it's a continuing education. So it serves a dual thing, and so I've been making that available free to all of you on Patristic Faith YouTube, so you can take advantage of that too. But I usually have to premiere it, which I think in one sense is kind of better, because then I can actually be in the chat and entertain your questions. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was doing the live Friday night with you, even if I could have streaming software on my college computer, which they don't let me have. Bill's character in my face. I used to have like 2015 like vision. It was like really good, and I ruined it by reading all of these books. Probably more from reading stuff off the computer screen. Anyways, let me just check and see if anybody's sending donations or super chats through the Streamlabs on the link that I provided there for you. Why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment for the algorithm. Still kind of stuck on not growing. What am I at now on my YouTube? What does it say? How many subscribers? Getting close to 10. Could have a celebration. 10K. I'm stuck at 9.44. I've been stuck on this for months. It's like no subscribers, or my subscribers, this has happened in the past, been taken away, or I'm being buried through the algorithm or something like that. But heck, I don't know. Nobody can figure it out. Who knows? Let me just see real quick. 9, so close. So close. Let me just add, in case any of you want to send in a super chat or a donation. You can do it here. Yeah, like the video, leave a comment, donations or super chats can be taken here. Okay, so far so good. I mean, I could leave the poll up. I don't necessarily need to end it. So any questions about the two things that I'm offering? I offer you just the pre-recorded lectures, and I give you a pricing plan for that. Or you can sign up for the Canvas. It looks like it's going to be the Logic course. And in the Canvas University Logic course, like I said, you get free office hours every week with me, live. You get grading, quizzes, exams, free materials, slides, discussions with fellow students, and a grade and written signed certificate by myself at the end of the course upon contingent upon completion. And then I'm going to leave it up to you whether you want to go week by week with all of us or if you prefer to go at your own speed. Once you pay the $850 for the Canvas course, you'll get an email confirmation, and then I'll take your email and via your email add you to the Canvas course so you're a student. And then you have permanent access to that to go in anytime you want, even after the course is closed. If I were to do this course, open it up again, I would just create a second logic course so that you guys would have access to this course permanently going on into the ages of ages. So there's that. And again, with just purchasing the pre-recorded lectures without the Canvas, I do have the epistemology, philosophy of science, ethics, political philosophy, and logic. Did I miss one? I feel like I missed one here. Introduction to philosophy, logic and critical thinking, epistemology, philosophy of science, ethics, and political philosophy. Yeah. Okay. You guys have any questions about that before I move on to the other announcements? The other announcement we gave is that this Friday I will be recording the Orthodox Catechesis and Continuing Education class and from Father Pomazanski's book. And if you're going along with us, we are on page 183, I think. Or did I get to 187? Is that like a police code for murder of a cop or something? No, murder is 187. This page has nothing to do with that. I don't know why I said that. So that is the section on God and salvation of mankind, in which we're picking up on the unity of the hypostasis of Jesus Christ. And so just read, if you're following along with us, just read the next 20 pages. We'll probably only get through 10 of those pages, but Caleb asks, where could we find a catalog of the video lectures without the extra Canvas stuff? You write me deciding what you want to purchase, and then I send you their private YouTube links. Is basically, so they just go to your email. So there's not necessarily any catalog unless I'll have our web manager on Patristic Faith possibly put that up this week of what's actually available, how to contact me, if that's what you mean, so you can see what you're looking at, how many lectures and various stuff. Somebody said, how many questions per exercise? Great question. Let's look. And again, the exercises in the introduction to philosophy are a bit different. It's kind of note-taking, sometimes study questions. It's not as demanding as what you get in. But let's just take a peek at what, and I'll share a screen here. Like I said, this is proof the course is actually already built. It's not going to, each week I'm going to be like, what am I going to come up with for you guys? you can actually see here. So here's a snippet of 1 week, the exercises. You read chapter 2.3 through 2.5, and then do these problem sets for 2.3 and 2.4. So here in 2.3 of section 1, you do 1, 3, 7, 10, 19, 24. Section 3, so you'll notice I'll skip. It's not like I'm having you do all the problems that are actually in the book. I'm picking certain problems for you. So I'm skipping section 2 and moving to section 3 of 2.3, in which I assign all the odds. And then 2.4, 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 13, 17, 20, 24. Section 2, 1A, 2A, 3A, 4B, 5A, and E. And then all the odds there. And then I go over in the next class some of the problems. Not otherwise it would take too much of the lecture time up. So I go over some of those. But if you were struggling, for example, on what you can call a particular problem, and it wasn't addressed in the next pre-recorded video, that's something you'd bring into office hours. Be like, could you do? Hey, Father Deacon, could you go over this problem with me? Could you explain this? So that would be the advantage of the office hours there, and that's kind of how it's structured. Is logic a form of epistemology? There's overlap, but they're separate disciplines. And all disciplines, many disciplines overlap. But epistemology, strictly speaking, deals with what is knowledge, how is knowledge possible, what are problems for knowledge, and things like this. Logic is studying. Logic already kind of presupposes, in some sense, that certain aspects of epistemology that you can know. And logic is the science or discipline dedicated to studying the rules of thought, argumentation, critical thinking. In fact, why don't I just read you what I've actually written here. Logic in this course will actually help equip you with the necessary tools. Well, what kind of tools? We use tools for all different kinds of stuff. To reason accurately, to perform analytic skills, to think critically, to make assessments, judgments, to form arguments. The relationship of logic to language, being able to identify various forms of arguments and the flaws with arguments, being able to make a distinction between inductive and deductive reasoning, and also being able to identify semantic confusions. So do you see there's even there's overlap in logic that it does deal with epistemology insofar as deductive arguments, could they and can they give you knowledge? And how do we err and miss the mark of getting to knowledge? Well, typically we focus on the kind of tools. But logic itself kind of presupposes that we can know. It doesn't establish that knowledge is actually possible. So that's why epistemology, that would be the domain of epistemology. But also notice there's overlap with philosophy of language. So theories of semantics, ideas of how definitions of various definitions work. And all of this is to equip you, the student, with the abilities to think correctly, according to use the tools correctly, to be able to distinguish facts from judgments, from beliefs, beliefs from knowledge, and making distinctions between induction and deduction, formal fallacies and informal fallacies, and then later moving into actually predicate logic and symbolic logic. So yeah, it's not a branch of epistemology, it presupposes epistemology, and there's overlap. I have an answer key that I provide the students, so you can check your answers after you turn them in. Okay, other questions. So we have 21 votes, 62% going for the logic. What other things do we have as far as announcements? We're already planning Orthodox Montanica early, trying to secure our speakers, our guest speakers, which I'm not going to announce until we get absolute confirmation on that. We have a partner business deal with that will be Patristic Faith will be providing coffee for sale. That's another good announcement. And many other great things too. This is just the beginning of, but let's see. Let me see if anybody's sent a super chat. Donation. Ooh, put a bunch of lime in there. Fresh squeezed lime juice. Questions, Q&A, ask me anything. Oh, how about sponsored streams? What are some things you guys would like to see on Patristic Faith? I'm going to put up, somebody asked a question, where would I sign up for the courses? For more information, you can write me here. But we're going to be putting all this, I'm just gathering data and info right now to give you the best kind of experience and education possible. Tailoring it in to your needs and preferences, and then what we're going to do is we're going to post this on Patristic Faith so you could actually have sign-ups through that. But if you do want all of the, that's weird. All of the lectures, I have all the links. I'm not going to show it to you because somebody could screenshot those. They're all private links. But the epistemology, intro to philosophy, intro to ethics, philosophy of science, logic and critical thinking, and then political philosophy is going to be a cheaper price because there's only 15 lectures. We do go through Dante Germino's From Machiavelli to Marx, which is an excellent book. Like I said, the logic. We go through Patrick Hurley's. Let me just show you all the books that, depending on what course. Epistemology is Bonjour, right there. And philosophy of science is Chalmers' What Is This Thing Called Science? Excellent book. Introduction to Philosophy has both individual readings and articles provided in the file section, but going through Perry Bratman and Fisher's book, which is just kind of an anthology of different philosophers arranged according to various themes. And one other book, Ethics, we go through Russ Schaefer Lando's The Fundamentals of Ethics. So those are all the books that we use for the courses that we will be doing. And like I said, if anybody's interested in purchasing some of those now, they're already available. Like I have private links for that. I just haven't released the Canvas course yet because I wanted to get some feedback. And then I'll set a deadline on, let's say open up in 2 weeks. I'll probably give it 2 weeks for people to sign up. Because then you wouldn't be too far, but like you could probably catch up in 2 weeks. I'm just using the same kind of methodology and kind of rules that I do at the university. It's like typically after you have students can actually get like late petitions and add the course up to like 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, it becomes really difficult to kind of catch up on the materials. So maybe I'll do that too. Yeah, great question. Somebody would like a stream on nominalism. That's great. What are some other topics if we did a sponsored stream? So we got nominalism. Yeah, absolutely. There's value to study ethics if you're Orthodox. It's not going to make you a better person, which is exactly what Aristotle. But it's going to help you be able to identify different systems and their problems, and see the advantages of orthodoxy. That's why I love studying philosophy and all the different disciplines, is that it helps me to see how great orthodoxy is. Helps me spot where there's errors and problems that I probably would have missed before. It also helps me figure out, and it would you too, how did we get in the problem that we are in today, right now, in terms of current events, politics, ideologies, and stuff like that? All that stuff, studying that is really helpful. It's like, well, okay, this happened, and this person came up with this idea, and this is how... And eventually, that's exactly why we're in the situation that we're in. And there's great value in that, too. And there's just great value, too, in whatever... All of these are philosophical disciplines, right? And every philosopher is incorrect. Sometimes they get stuff correct, but by studying them, you're training your mind to be critical, to analyze arguments, and the more that you do that, the better you get in whatever topic. Ethics, philosophy of language, continental philosophy, all these different things. It gives you an opportunity to basically become a better critical thinker. Let's see. I think nominalism definitely set up for... I don't think that you can have evolution, theory of evolution, without nominalism. I mean, Aristotle had this idea of fixity of species. So how could species change? Aristotle's obviously a real essentialist. And nominalism rejects real essences. By the way, this is another good book that I started and then I got busy with a bunch of projects I need to finish, though, but this would be a good stream or even course to do. Real Essentialism by Otterberg right there. It's all about exactly what we were talking about. Reality and noble essences. Let's see what another... The structure of essence. Essence and identity. It's cool. And then it even has like genus species, like kind of illustrations in here. But there's even arguments in this book too, addressing nominalism. Aspects of essence is the next chapter. Life, the essence of life. Species, biological and metaphysical. This is such a great book. The person. The essence of personhood. Good luck. Good luck trying to explain that. It's probably just going through. Yeah, look at this. And it goes into a whole thing about like evolution and Darwin and stuff like that. It talks about hylomorphic dualism. Consciousness, psychology, and the person. Oh yeah. So this is, I forgot about, it's chapter 1. Some variety of anti-essentialism. So that's where the arguments about. So, empiricists and anti-essentialists. It goes over David Hume, verificationalism with regards to empiricism, Locke, John Locke, Quine, Karl Popper. This is all within the anti-essentialism section. But there was actually a great, here, Wittgenstein. Problem of, and then there's arguments why essences are real. And then I think it's like addressing here. You can see I made some notes about arguments against nominalism and stuff like that, which is that would be a fascinating stream. Very good idea. I haven't. Ontology and Death, Patristic Philosophy against Nominalism. No, that's a great... I'm going to look that up. Great recommendation. I'd like to see a stream, says Ernest Harris, on nominalism. Its connection to abortion, veganism, denial of essence. Also, I haven't done any bioethics. You want me to share something with you? So I came up with a thought experiment. Surprise, surprise. Philosophers come up with thought experiments. And I posted it on social media. And wanted to get people's... Just share it here so you can read along as I read along. Isn't that nice? Now I'm obviously setting up this question in light of another fundamental question that I want to ask. And what's interesting is the responses on this, 78 responses. When did I put this up? A week ago. 78 responses. Most of them aren't getting actually what I'm getting at, or they're not seeing. A couple people asked, is this a question about, yep, and they got it. But let's see if you can get it. Suppose someone owns a priceless piece of art. The owner of this piece of art never intends to sell it. And I'm putting these details in because they're actually going to matter. I'm thinking when I'm raising this question in light of another question, I'm thinking in my mind about possible objections. Then I'm going back in and I'm writing that in to basically exclude, to make sure that those objections couldn't be asked. And sometimes it's like the way that you would set up a good riddle is the way that you would set up a question for an exam or something like that. You don't want it to be an open-ended so that there's multiple answers. You want it to be very precise and concise. And that requires thinking about every possible goofy response or answer and then working that back into either your riddle or an exam question. So you exclude, in the very question that you're raising, you exclude the possibility of that those questions even be answered. And that ends up being a good thought experiment or a good question or a good riddle. And this is what I've done. So there's a reason why I'm saying the owner never intends to sell the priceless piece of art. And he wants to keep it for his eyes alone. And one thing I would add here that I added later was, well, let me read this and then I'll give you that caveat. However, the priceless piece of art is stolen. You then come across, and at this point, assume now the owner's long dead. But the priceless piece of art is still stolen. You come across an art thief who tells you, and he tells you, so you actually have full knowledge, that this work has been stolen. And he's not going to give it to you. He's not going to even sell you that stolen piece. That thief's going to keep it for himself, but he's going to allow you to make a copy of that stolen piece. And let's say you do it because you want to make money, and you know that you could make money off of a copy of this wonderful stolen piece of art, knowing it was stolen. But you're going to justify your actions because, well, you weren't part of the causal chain of the thief. You're not part of the stealing. And in order to be part of the crime, you have to be complicit in some way. You have to either enable the crime to happen or part of the causal chain. But since it's after the fact, you're not involved in the causal chain in any sense. You're not an accomplice. And you're not actually stealing. Or are you? I'll have to ask you. Because you're making a copy of the stolen, but you're not actually taking the stolen piece. And you promise to put that money to good use. Let's say you're going to feed your family. Your family's starving. I mean, just plug in whatever example you want. But it's like, yeah, man, I could really use that money. And you're not just going to go, squander it on reckless living down at the bar in Vegas or something. I don't know. You're going to put it to good use. Is your action of copying and selling the stolen piece of art immoral? That's the question I want to know. So now I've laid out some very strict kind of boundaries to define this issue. The owner's long dead. So there's no further harm that can come to the owner of the piece of art. He's not losing anything more than the actual piece of art because he never intended to sell it. and he's gone. The thief's clearly responsible for that. We want to know is making copies, and perhaps even copies of copies. Suppose you're the 10th, 20th person down the line. Is actually being involved in that after the fact, does that morally contaminate you? So a lot of people thought, oh, it's if somebody, one person here gives an example of if somebody, so they're missing it. Let me just show you. If I rob a bank and give you a loan telling you I robbed the bank, you're complicit 100%. So this person doesn't actually understand. Yeah, but if you rob the bank and you have the stolen property and then you give that, that is theft. So they're missing the example. It's not lining their example, and this is what's hard about ethics and philosophy, is most of these people aren't clear about these principles. Because my question wasn't, is it theft? I set it up specifically so it couldn't be theft. It could be immoral, what you're doing, but it's not theft. So this person doesn't understand what I'm actually saying and actually address it. There's several people that don't. I said the difference is that you're not taking the original stolen piece of art like you're taking a loan from the stolen money. The question is about copies of something stolen. So this guy can't understand the difference either and thinks it's theft. So here's a great example of people could benefit from taking my philosophy courses. It's just kind of sloppy and unrefined thinking. If you kind of go over more of these examples, you'll start to actually be able to narrow in. You'll actually become a very critical thinker. But I give an argument. Part of what theft is... Now this guy's actually a philosopher, so I don't know what he's on about. We can get an idea of what theft is defined by law. Where did I provide that argument? Because it could be like for example, intellectual property. Where did I put that? Could be intellectual property, or it could be actual theft. And I actually put the legal actual definitions. And it does, make a long story short, I can't find it right now, so you can see my comments there. Okay, here it is. The definition of theft includes so this guy was disagreeing. Theft isn't illegally defined, and we can go to legal definitions, like we go to lexical definitions, give us a context. It's not infallible or anything like that. But certainly if one's just kind of creating their own definitions of theft, it's anachronistic. We have to have some kind of standard or some sort of evidence that we go to that kind of defines the debate and the thing being talked about. So law's a great way to look at that, to make use of. Theft includes taking something that belongs to someone else without their consent, okay, which results in a loss. Okay, so stealing a painting, right? The owner did not consent to the thief coming in and taking it. And it resulted in a property loss, a tangible piece. That's clearly theft. But simply taking something without... Because this guy was arguing that it doesn't have to include loss. You can just take something without somebody's consent. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. The counterexample is somebody can take a picture of you without your consent. And nobody's going to be like, that's theft. Why? Because there's no loss. We would have to calculate. Could be if like that ended up resulting in the damage of a reputation or something like that. You could actually perhaps have legal action. But here we get a very clear idea. It's taking of something without a person's consent. See, this guy's saying it doesn't have to have a loss. Of course it does. Like, you're just making stuff up at this point. Because like I said, and maybe you can think of an example too, where you take something without somebody's permission, but there's no loss of property, or there's no financial loss, there's no loss of reputation or anything like that. Nobody in their right mind would say, that's theft. So you need these as two necessary conditions: loss and taking of somebody's property without their consent. So what about making copies of copies? What property is taken in making the copy, or what financial loss did the owner undergo by the person making a copy of the original stolen piece of art? Remember, the piece of property was lost, but so we could say the thief is a thief. There was an actual loss. But because he didn't intend to sell it, there's no further loss that can be incurred by you taking advantage of the person's crime. So that's why I set the boundaries very clear and defined it. What you're doing may be immoral, but it's not theft. There's a lot of different ways it can be immoral. But clearly this doesn't fit any definition of theft. Well, so when he thinks about, yeah, but what about, and why did I define it that way? That he wasn't going to ever sell it? Because if he were, you copying the copy of the original thief could actually constitute theft in terms of copyright law and intellectual property. And so I actually had provided, I thought, in here the actual legal definitions. I can't remember. Of actual both copyright law and now I can't find it. Yeah, here. Here's the legal definition taken from, I don't know what's going on. I'll go back up. I provided it. The legal definition of theft: the taking of another person's personal property with the intent of depriving, here's the loss that I was telling you about, that person of their use of their property. So clearly the stealing of the original art piece is actual stolen, it's theft. And that's what I say right here. But that leads to the other possibility I told you about, perhaps in terms of intellectual property laws. Theft of intellectual property is defined as the unauthorized use or copying. So maybe this is, well, let's have to see. Without consent, okay, didn't have consent. Exploitation or outright theft of creative works, and here I'm including the piece of art, ideas, trade secrets, or proprietary information that otherwise protected under intellectual property laws, so it needs to be protected under the intellectual property laws, and occurs when somebody knowingly uses, which in the example that I stated you would, you knew that it was stolen, misappropriates or takes or steals property that falls under the protection laws around intellectual property. But here's the second necessary condition, which results in financial damage to the owner. Financial loss. Loss of competitive edge, damaged reputation, or slowdown in business growth, or loss of customer trust. So notice I set up the example specifically by adding two conditions. He didn't intend to sell it, so it can't be any financial loss. No loss in competitive edge. Damaged reputation, that doesn't really apply. slow down, blah, blah, blah. And he's long dead. Okay, so returning back to the original question, ethical question. I've defined it very, very specific, so it's not theft. But it could still be very immoral. Are you morally culpable? You sell copies of copies to make money that you put to good use, of course. And assume for the sake of the argument, you're not misleading the person that purchases the copy from you. You let them know that, look, this is just a copy, but it's a copy of an original stolen piece of art. Okay. What say all of you? Is it immoral, and why? Now, I can already tell you, if you're a libertarian, most libertarians don't believe in intellectual property, so they're probably going to say no. And he has, yeah, I could just add in, he doesn't intend to pass it down to his heirs or anything like that. The underlying principle in this ethical question is things that are clearly are sins or crimes that have been done in the past. Is it always wrong to perhaps take advantage of that and bring about a good? Now you're probably going to be like, yes, always. But I'd encourage you to pause for a second. I bet there are things that you know of that, especially as Christians, that we're called to bring a good out of an evil. So most of us would probably not say that it's always wrong to benefit or bring something good out of something bad. In principle, that can't be. So, but then there's probably cases that you're like, yeah, but in some cases there are. So now I want to know, okay, in those cases that you think, well, this would certainly be wrong to take advantage of a crime or sin in the past in which you benefit or others benefit. And then why? And then let's see if in your mind you can figure out, why am I even asking this question? What does this have to do with anything? It doesn't actually have anything to do with stolen pieces of art. Does anybody, by the way, I'm going to check and see if, speaking of money, if anybody is going to support, or am I going to have to resort to making copies of stolen pieces of art just to feed my family? Because nobody would give a super chat donation to great D1. It almost says like Discord, basically, is what has a great point. This is fun. Seems that the crux has to do with whether it's ethical or neutral to honor the original owner's wish after death or to keep. Yes, I think consent is absolutely crucial. I brought this point up with, and I'll give you an example, and this is controversial. It created a big kind of scandal with this guy on the Facebook in the comments. Can I think of an example in which a crime or sin happened in which You may or may not. Most people probably would. I'd like to hear your reasons why not, if you don't agree with it. Organ donation. Suppose somebody's murdered. Here's an example where most people would say, what a tragedy. That was actually a crime and a sin. But the person there could be this poor little kid next door to me, and he's going to die. He needs a kidney transplant. And he's going to die without it, or a heart transplant or something like that. Is it morally advantageous? Is it correct morally, would it be morally permissible for you to take the kidney and save somebody's life? The man's already dead. He was murdered. It was a terrible thing, but you're saving somebody's life. That would be an example where most people would say, yeah, sure. But then something comes up that's really important. Consent. Was he an organ donor? Which gets to Discord's point too. It seems that the crux has to do with whether we want to honor the original owner. In this case, the kidney owner. Well, he didn't consent and he was murdered. Then we started to get into moral murky waters. It's like, yeah, I don't know if you can do that. Now, one of this guy, Orthodox Christians, said, it's always wrong to organ donation. So the person seemed pretty confident. It was like, well, is that the Orthodox official position on that? They couldn't answer that because I said, well, we give a citation on. And he proceeded to just argue, well, I would think if they ever did, this would be it, because your body is the temple of God. First, I thought they were talking about something. He says you can't give away things God has given you. And at first, I didn't know they were talking about the organ donation. I was like, so I can't give people gifts? Like, the Magi came bearing gifts to Christ. Like, you can't, because everything belongs to God, right? And we're to be good stewards of it, and we work it and we give it. So at first I was like, well, that can't be right. And I don't understand, if everything belongs to God and He entrusts it to you, what in principle means you can't gift things to. And then I realized, oh, he's talking about organ donor. But then that still applies, though. Well, why is it? Oh, because the body's the temple of the Holy Spirit, the temple of God. A piece of land isn't. So maybe you would go with that. And in fact, he kind of went with this argument. And then here was my counter argument. I'm not telling you what my position is on this, but this is what we do. You do this in ethics and philosophy. You do the dialectical pushback to see if, does this person actually, are they just making up stuff? Is it just their feelings? Yeah, that's what I'm bringing up. A kidney from a murder to help my next door neighbor who's dying, the little boy without the, this isn't literally happening, but I'm giving you an example. Somebody would say yes if they consent. But then an Orthodox says you can't even do it if the person consents, because the body belongs to God, because it's the temple of. So the counter argument is, well, wait a minute. Scripture says, greater love has no one than this, than a man lay down his life, his body, for his friends. Guy didn't understand. He was like, that's self-sacrifice. But do you see that it falls back on, well, wait a minute. So God's saying this only applies for your whole body, but not a part of your body? Because isn't that a type of sacrifice? The person is sacrificing a piece of their body. So if it holds true for the whole body, just think about landing on a grenade to save your family, because that's what happens. Like, there's grenades flying everywhere. But you know what I'm saying. That sacrifice is, well, if what he was saying was true, no, the body's the temple of the Holy Spirit. It's a temple of God. You can't actually give your body for anything to save people. But yes, you can. Scripture talks about it. Greater love has no greater love than this, that you lay down your body, your whole life of your body to save somebody. So if that applies to the whole, then equally, even more, it would apply to any part of the body. So it just doesn't make sense to me. The guy couldn't get it. And unfortunately, there are two schools of camps. There is not an official Orthodox position on this bioethics question. There are two camps. Although, and this is not an infallible guide, but all the bioethicists, Orthodox bioethicists, that, where is it? The late Tristan Engelhardt, Anna Iltis, Mark Cherry. I'm trying to think of all like the big. Now he's since passed. Do take the position that it's perfectly compatible if it's consent. If the person donates, but that's okay with the Orthodox. So I don't actually know any bioethicists that take the other side, that you can't. Just to bring that up. So anyways, going back then, if you were, and I'm not saying you have to, take the position that, well, here's an example, counterexample, of an evil that actually happened, that you could, if the person gave consent to be an organ donor, benefit from. So now I've got an example perhaps that, well, wait a minute, not every crime or sin that you take advantage of later in time makes you immoral. So what are your thoughts? Salmon asks, what do you mean there's no such thing as a generic God? Think about it this way. Do I have a generic wife? Is it just... is there something out there that exists with only bare minimum kind of properties of being a female, 5'6", brown-haired? No, like there is nothing that exists out there. It's a specific person with a specific history, with specific attributes. So likewise, there's no generic God. The specifics of God matter. He's a Trinity, right? He's the second person. The Holy Trinity became incarnate, fully God, fully man. The Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father, like all these different things about. There's no generic monotheistic God. Like, it's an idea that doesn't correspond to anything. Just like there's no idea of like that there's something out there of generic wife that my thoughts or your thoughts or words could apply to. Donating blood would be another example. Yeah, see, that's what doesn't make sense. You can sacrifice your whole body, i.e. your life, but you can't sacrifice a piece of it. Well, wait a minute. It's just, like, that's contradictory. That's like somebody saying, you can give all your money tithing, but you can't give part of your money. you would say, well, wait a minute, if you can give all of your money, why can't you give part of it? The whole includes all the parts, is what the argument is. So yeah, great point. It doesn't make any sense to, if Scripture says, no greater love than this, that you lay down your whole body, then it follows that any part of your body too, to save the life of your friend or loved one. There is no being with all the omnes, like just the omnes. That's what I'm saying. The omnes may be true about God, but it includes other things. So one of the problems is that also having commonalities, like I say, I found God in the Promised Land. I get all my theology there. And I hope to return there one day. My neighbor says, me too. So, are we talking about the same place? Are our words and thoughts hitting the same place? Well, I later come to find out that that person's talking about their local Christian bookstore, and I'm talking about the place in Israel. So, that's why simply having all the omnes, right, are common among people doesn't mean that we're talking about the same thing. Bone marrow is also donated, yeah. Does that make sense about there is no generic God. There's no lowest common denominator. And who's to decide that? Is it just the omnes? You add creator in that? I mean, how many properties do you need before you actually hit the... It doesn't make any sense. And it's even more so, I'm using it with my wife, like there would be a case that like you could miss some certain properties, but you do get enough. But that's because she's a natural, what we call in philosophy, a natural object. And the way that referents are determined in terms of the laws of nature and being a natural or sensory object, so very different than what we call mental objects. Mental doesn't imply that they don't exist, but things like God and stuff like that are determined according to the whole, right? So what that references is defined by that particular, what that word means, by all the rules, semantic rules, and all the properties. So there is no bare minimum that can actually apply so that there's a generic God that we could all be talking about because of that. It's all or nothing with that. And that's why there is literally no generic perennialist God that exists there that your words or thoughts could be about. And furthermore, even if you derive 5 facts about the true living God, that's not enough to hit your referent. Even among natural things, let alone mental objects that are determined by all the properties and the rules, the logical and semantic rules of the religion, philosophy, or paradigm. So that's why it's like, no, Jews, Muslims, and Christians are not talking about the same thing. They're not hitting anything. Okay. Speaking of money, we returned. Yes, Discord donates $25. Nice stream. Wouldn't it be a shame if somebody copied my money? Oh, my stream. Yeah. What if this is just like a meta? It's like a meta stream. It's like I'm set up this whole thought experiment just to talk about somebody copying and selling my stream without my consent. Ladies and gentlemen, you do not have my consent. Alrighty, thank you, Discord. Thank you so much. That is really going to help. Alright, back to feel like I need some nose spray. My nose is clogging up. You know, we're all wondering about the metaphysics and of the universe and its ethics. Well, I'm thinking about, I've got a clogged nose, and I'm not going to be able to talk through this stuff, so just give me 1 second while I get my nose spray. What I really wanted to say, why I'm trying to generate all this money is I've got some bad news, guys. I've got a growth. It may be cancer. I don't know. It's scary. It hurts like heck. I mean, look at this thing, dude. I mean, does that look normal to you? And yeah, it moves too. See that? It moves. It's kind of squishy. And so we're just all up here trying to... what if it's growing like another head? What if I'm in need of an organ transplant because this thing's a tumor and I need to raise funds? Oh, it hurts so bad. And the only person that's contributed to the Father Deacon Ananias Cancer Tumor Fund is Father Igor. It's our dear friend Discord. All right. We're going to remove the cancer and we'll get back to the lecture. Told you, it moves around. My nose is better too. I removed the tumor in the nose. It's a miracle. Through your donations, the power has come and removed my cancer and my nose blockage. All right. Does everybody understand the ethical thought experiment that I came up with, the art thief and making copies of it? Then I will create another poll. Is making copies of a stolen is making copies of a stolen piece of art for some benefit, financial or otherwise, where the original owner suffers no further loss. Let me reword this. Is it immoral? Immoral to make copies of a stolen piece of art for some benefit, financial or otherwise, where the original owner suffers no further loss. and you weren't complicit in the original crime. How about that? Okay, your question's too long, it says. By two letters. Well, we'll just do ampersands then. Solve that problem. I learned this from Twitter because I don't have checkmark. All right, I need one more. Is it moral to? We just put 2 to the number 2. Oh, it's still too long. I'm 100 over. All right, you heard what I said. I'm just going to cut half of this down. And you know the rest, okay? Start poll, go. You see what I put on the... One vote. 100%. Ooh. It's going back and forth. It's neck and neck. We've got two. One yes, one no. While you vote, I'm going to tell you a joke about body parts and missing body parts, and I hope that you'll join me in this, and I hope that you'll find it amusing. So there's a neighbor boy over here, poor kid. Gosh darn, don't you know, he was born without ears. Kid's pretty sensitive about it too. So we all kind of know around here in the neighborhood, don't look at the earless boy and draw attention to the fact that he's really sensitive about it, and that he's well, gosh dang it, he's missing his ears. It does kind of look weird, and certainly don't say anything. That's doesn't even have to be said, but it did have to be said one night when one of the neighbors here has us all over for dinner. Several of the neighbors, and before little earless Bobby comes out, he the father says, we're going to have this nice meal together, and my boy doesn't have ears, and you might know that. He's sensitive about it. Little earless Bobby is sensitive about not having ears, and doesn't want to be a freak and be seen as a freak at the circus show or anything like that. And so let's all just be courteous and respectful, and don't point out the fact that little Bobby doesn't have any ears. So, of course, this kind of sets all the rest of the neighbors a little bit uneasy, and they're, have some anxiety about it. It's kind of making the situation a little weird. So, of course, everybody's conversation is a little earless. Bobby comes out, gets stranger and stranger and more awkward, let's say. So, hey, Bobby, you enjoying the weather there, Bobby? Oh, yeah, and playing with the kids? Yep. That's real nice there, Bobby. And as it goes on, everybody says something more and more awkward. Bobby, you got some real nice shoes there, Bobby. Like, we really, I bet those are some real fast shoes if you were to run. And yeah, Bobby says, I like my shoes. And so, the next neighbor at the dinner goes on to say, well, Bobby, you just got such a nice haircut, Bobby. We all just noticed that, and we wanted to say something. And Bobby says thank you, and it's getting kind of awkward now that everybody's got to comment on Bobby, everything but Bobby's ears, right? His lack of ears. And so, well, gosh darn it, wouldn't you know it, one of the neighbors has to actually start commenting on Bobby's eyes. And says, Bobby, you've got a real nice set of eyes there, real pretty, Bobby. And, you ought to take care of those eyes because, if you don't, Bobby, you're going to need glasses and you ain't going to have anything to hang them on. All right. How are we on the poll? 13 votes say no. Interesting. Yeah, Bobby should grow his hair out, not cut his hair to expose that he's a freak. Yeah, you got it. I was channeling the spirit of Norm Macdonald. I like his setups. I like the way he kind of, you didn't know where it was going, and then it's just bam, right into it. Glasses need to hang on ears, and Bobby's doesn't got none. That's why it's so funny. Ha ha ha. I could have channeled Mitch Hedberg. Or is it Mitch Hedberg? Where am I blanking on? Mitch Hedberg. Mitch Hedberg. Let me try to do a Mitch Hedberg. I think I might have lost Mitch Hedberg. There was a Bobby, he was a child, and he was perhaps one of our most interesting neighbors because he did not have ears on his head. That's Mitch Hedberg. Now this is very interesting for all the neighbors because if you don't know Mitch Hedberg, it took me a second to kind of get back into. You do Chevy Chase. Well, Russ, you see, well, Bobby doesn't have ears there. Well, Russ, there goes Bobby without his ears again. Russ. 69% say no. All right, I want to know your reasons why. By the way, it doesn't really matter to me because I've transcended ethics. So if you take my course, you too could transcend ethics. What if I told you you could be beyond good and evil? For the price of a cup of coffee a day. That's $2.30 on my Father Deacon Ananias payment plan. Transcend the bounds of morality and metaphysics and take out investment and real estate in imaginary places in your mind. I tell you. Oh, Bobby. Bobby without ears. Whoa. I tell you, he gets no respect. There's Rodney. Another comedian. Well, that's not the only thing Bobby's got a problem with. The thing is it immoral to make copies of a stolen piece of art for some benefit? Let's say you sell the piece of art, you weren't engaged in the original crime. The author's dead, the owner's dead, and didn't intend to sell it in the first place, so that it doesn't fulfill the qualifications of copyright infringement or intellectual property. So there's no further loss incurred to the individual. He doesn't hand it down. He had no intention of handing it down after he passed away, for his eyes only. And so there's no financial loss that's further occurred, reputation, etc. So I set it up so that whatever you're doing by selling copies of the original piece of art isn't theft in terms of intellectual property, or just kind of a more generic notion of theft. Then we want to know, well, is it immoral? But the artist didn't consent. Does anybody know where this is going, by the way? Now, suppose we brought up, I think most of you agreed that, so if that's not immoral, even though you didn't consent and you're making advantage of it, could you, in principle, theoretically, take advantage of somebody's organ part that was murdered if they weren't an organ donor? Because the same thing, it's like, well, you're taking their body part without permission. So whoever originally did that is guilty. But you were like, well, I need an organ part. Would you be complicit? I mean, not complicit. Would you be morally tainted? I think at that point, people would start to say, yeah, I think you're getting into immorality. And suppose I didn't want it for a kidney, but I wanted to make, I don't know, lampshades out of it. Like, that would make a great lampshade. You know what? The guy's already dead, but he wasn't an organ donor. But he's dead. I mean, we might as well make something good out of his kidney, and heck, I think we could make a good lampshade. Or, I mean, kidneys probably wouldn't make good lampshades, but it'd make a nice, I don't know, book weight. Would you say that's wrong? You take advantage of this guy's murder and you didn't consent to giving his body parts, but you actually take his body parts and you do something nice. You decorate your home with it. Good point. It isn't a copy. It's the original piece. Excellent. Very good. Okay. If it's the original piece, then it's exactly like somebody took the money and gave you, stole the money and took a loan, and you're taking it as a loan from them. Does anybody figure out where this is going? Because I'm trying to make another example where maybe you make a copy. What if I made a copy of the body parts? And I wouldn't be able to do so unless the person was murdered and their body parts stolen for the purpose of selling on the black market for people to make copies of. Could I make a copy and then be like, this is an exact replica of a murdered man. I've decorated my room with the body parts, mind you, copies of a murdered man whose organs were stolen from him so that you and I could benefit and make and decorate our rooms with it. Isn't that nice? Would you say that's wrong? So now I'm switching it. Oh, it's not the original piece. Black market cloning, we'll call it. Does anybody see where this is going? Does anybody anticipate where this is going? We're already into the category. Hold on, let me see if I can pull up a book. I'll pull up two books to give you clues. Where's the other book? Where is it, Lord? Which is another example of why I probably shouldn't eat glasses. What shelf is it on? Oh man, where is it? Here's one. Anybody? So we're getting into this territory. I could have sworn I just went over it. Just passed it with my eyes. It was an Orthodox book that I had that I was looking for. That I'll have to try to find later, I guess. So I got, anyway. Orthodox Thinking and Bioethics. Yes! Unlisted Logos, you got it. You get a free organ. Because you won the... How many people know about the HEK 239 cell line? Watch, everybody's votes are going to start changing once I tell. The HEK 239 cell line. Is the cell line from two aborted babies. So there was a murder that was occurred. And one of those was 1978, I believe. I'm just going to look up so I have that information for you. 1973 was one of them. And there was another one maybe around in the 80s or something. And guess what? That's kidney cells, human embryonic kidney cells from two aborted babies. So there was a murder, and then the way that cell line is then basically that's what I came up with the idea of copies. That the babies, so the argument, just like the owner of the art piece, he's dead and gone. There was no consent in either case. Correct? And I can just pop up here so that you can see the similarities between the two. Because I wrote them out. And you can follow along with me. This is specifically about using the HEK 239's cell line from the two aborted children to develop medicines that could possibly have therapeutic benefit. Notice the following similarities. Number one, both involve a sin or a crime, murder and theft. Both require consent to use or take one's property, consent to use one's body parts, or consent to use or take one's piece of art. Neither one is present. So compounds the crime, obviously, what's done after the murder. Both make copies of the property. I mean, I guess you own your kidney, right? Without the owner's consent, that would never be possible. So you couldn't make the copies without the original crime or sin. But the person does so without engaging. So if you make the copies, you're not engaging or part of the causal chain that led up to the crime. You're not complicit in it. Therefore, the person in both examples cannot be said to be complicit in that original crime. But it doesn't mean that you're not still immoral. You're just definitions of what it means to be complicit. Both make use of or benefit from a tragedy, sin, or crime, but for something good. For example, attempting to prevent or mitigate diseases, or attempting to generate money to pay for something good or necessary. So both examples are similar there. Number 5, both scenarios, the original victim of the crime or sin is long since dead, and so no further harm can be done to the victim by making copies for some good end. And by the way, these are the arguments when somebody says that this is okay to avail of the HEK 239 cell line. These are the arguments they make. That's why I put them in there. In both scenarios, the person's action of copying something that is only possible if the original crime occurred is far removed, temporally speaking, from the original crime. That's the second argument that they make. Yeah, but this happened in 1973. And we made copies of copies. You're so far removed from the original crime that you can't be morally tainted or compromised by availing of something good from if you're that far removed out. So therefore, the question behind this thought experiment is if it is immoral in one of the scenarios. And that's really who I'm concerned about. So those of you that voted, yes, it is immoral to basically make copies of the stolen piece of art to sell. Ceteris paribus, all things being equal, what would you say about the jabbies? So really this is to kind of trap people in inconsistency. Not everybody would say, as we saw in the poll, that making copies of the original piece of art defined as the way that we did in the thought experiment is immoral. But what about those that said yes? Because my next question is, well, do you take the mRNA jabbies? Do you take these jabs that fulfill all these conditions? In the same case, you said that it was wrong in this situation with the thought experiment, but it's not wrong to take the jabbies. I want to know why. That's what and I want to see, are they being logically and ethically consistent? Are they principled? That's why I set that up. Another bad argument too is that I want to address, and I may actually write about this, write an article, a bioethics article about this, is people say, well, most all the products and medications that you used were tested on the HEK 239. So my argument is artists not murder babies, right? So this is what we call in philosophy a fortiori. You get them on a smaller case, somebody say yes, then you say, well, even more so for something that's actually living, that's a human being, that's made in the image of God. That's why we use these arguments. If I can get somebody to say, yes, it's immoral for all the same, like, in principle, on something much smaller, I've got them on the big thing when it actually comes to human life. Does that make sense? What's wrong with my microphone? Is this like, can you hear me? Did it go out? Murder babies. So the theft is just like if you, that's why I set up the organ donor scenario. If a person was murdered and they didn't consent to give their organs, to take their organs is theft. So likewise, that child did not consent to have its kidneys and the stem cells taken from, and the kidney and the stem cells. It's echoing. How about now? Better? 1, 2, 3. It did drop down. That's weird. I wonder why. Bob! It was going all the way up, but how's that? Is it better? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. My mic went out. Wow, we're at 2 hours. I gotta get going soon. I got science to do. So, going back to the jabbies, people say that, well, no, you can't be morally tainted or immoral for taking those, because if you were, you're obviously a hypocrite, deacon or whoever, because you're taking Tylenol and these different medications and all these products, over-the-counter products and which has been tested on. Bad argument, and I'll tell you why. First of all, aspirin, Tylenol, Benadryl, all these things I looked up and they do test on that. Guess what? They were developed and existed a long time before 1973. So I don't know why they're testing on. They shouldn't be. A company shouldn't be. But you can, in your mind, tell the difference between developing and creating something from a cell line versus after a product's already out there in the world, that some companies use that to test on. And then that's a gotcha on me that I can't say no to jabbies because occasionally, and hardly ever, because I don't like taking medications, take Tylenol or aspirin for a headache. Number two, I have an option not to take. There are other options except for taking for the jabbies. You don't really have any other options as far as headache, like Benadryl. That stuff's out there. Okay, so that really changes the moral kind of boundaries and questions and considerations. Still echoing. I wonder why. It's just so weird that it changes like that. Huh. You know what I could do? I could check something real quick. Better. 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 Okay, I'll end with this. So the other thing too is it a life and death situation? Is it like receiving a kidney? And that's where I'd analyze the COOF data, which was already like we were lied about. What you want to look at is your age group too. So if you'll notice, they put us all in one age group to make it look like it's called the IFR. It's the risk of fatality if infected. For my age group, 0.0045% if infected. That's from the original, like the worst version of. So you can't make. I mean, nowhere in medicine would would anybody even make that there's an urgency with that kind of, certainly not pandemic, right? This whole thing was a lie. Second thing needs to be considered: are they safe and effective? They lied to us about that. They're not safe and effective. The risk of adverse side effects, as we look at VAERS, probably far outnumbers now as far as the information coming in, whatever amount of people that actually died from the COOF are dying from, and those are all going to be underreported anyways, both the fear of losing your medical license too, and the difficulty of attributing it to specifically to that. People are going to be like, well, we never know. It could have been anything, right? He was only 16 years old and died of, he was perfectly healthy and died of. Okay, that makes a big difference. So wait a minute. Here's my question, and I'll end with this. You have two medications. They're equal in every way. One's developed from the murderous HEK239 cell line, and one isn't. Which one do you take? Everybody hands down says, I would avoid the other one. Okay, because there's an option. There isn't a necessity to actually take this. So everything that I was saying, and you would say you would be immoral in some sense if you did. So, well, wait a minute. If my IFR is 0.00, and the IFR, you remember, is the risk of fatality if infected, is 0.0045. And then the medication that you're offering me is morally tainted through this HEK239 cell line, which is the reason why you said you would, if you had the same medicine without it, you would take it. And it's not safe and effective, it's killing people. Are you morally tainted or immoral with all of this evidence now that you know that you're going to take that jab? Especially knowing that other things like natural immunity et al. Are far more effective. Guess who's getting sick, by the way? The jabbed. So anyways, these are kind of some bioethical questions that I'm thinking about and developing it. I'm sure I'll get a bunch of hate from the science idolaters who, by the way, never know anything about science. Isn't that interesting? A lot of these people come on and tell me that, I guess you hate science. You're a science nerd. It's like, I teach philosophy of science. I did grad work, PhD work in philosophy of science. I'm professor of philosophy of science. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure from that crowd, I'll get some more hate. But what can you do? Truth and reason doesn't always make you popular, as we see with Socrates. They killed him in Christ. Not that I'm putting myself anywhere in their camps of having the virtues that our Lord Savior did, or even Socrates. But you get the idea. Okay, let's see. Before I head out, anything you guys want to say? Ricardo donates $10. Thank you. And thank you, Ricardo. Ricardo says thank you, and I say thank you to your thank you, Ricardo. God bless you. If you haven't liked, please do that. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. We're that close to getting to the 10K mark. We don't know why it's not climbing. But as the anti-Bill Gates, Gil Bates says, we got to get those numbers up. Not down, up. Let's get those subscriber numbers up. Let's share this video. Leave a comment for the algorithm. And do consider donating to Patristic Faith to help us continue our projects and ministries that are made possible by your charitable contributions. Again, I wish you all a blessed feast of the elevation of the Holy Cross, life-giving, precious cross that we celebrated today on the old calendar. And please keep me in your prayers. Very excited again, getting all your feedback with respect to my launching of the Canvas University course. And feel free to write me if you want any further information or want to just purchase single individual lectures instead of the Canvas course. And keep me in your prayers. Keep everybody at Patristic Faith in your prayers. And I will see you guys next time. Blessed evening. Goodbye.